Welcome to the Fright Lab. I'm Lucas Yoakum, and it is now the 11th entry in our, unfolding, seemingly endless 31 days of Halloween, 31 days of horror, 31 for 31, whatever you're calling it. It's the spooky season, and we've got a unique little film. And I said that about Savage Land, I realize, but if you want to talk about not a 180 away from Savage Land, but just a very different film, we're talking about 2022's Burial. This was a Shudder exclusive that popped up a couple of years back. And it's not what it seems. And I liked that. I was very taken back. I was expecting something and got something else. But we'll call it a happy surprise, a happy accident, if you will. So let's talk about this film. First of all, let's try to cover the plot. So there is a detachment of Soviet soldiers at the end of World War II who are tasked with leaving Berlin in 1945 to bring a very, very special sort of cargo back to Moscow to deliver to the chairman of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin, to prove that the war is well and truly over. But this is a horror movie, so you know that can't quite happen the way we'd like it to. Now, real quick, before we get into this movie, content warning. There's a lot of fucking Nazis and Nazi shit in this movie, along with some rather, I think, unnecessary sexual violence. It is short-lived, and we won't spend a lot of time discussing it here. If you don't want to see that in your movie, please skip this one. Don't give it a watch. However, let's talk about this movie. So, to start, one of the things I really liked about this movie, it adds some historical context, some historical flavor to it, is that our main character, Brana, I don't know if she's supposed to be like an intelligence officer or what, but she is a trusted officer of the Soviet Union and the Soviet Army. She is very loosely based, I think, on a very real character from World War II from the Soviet Army, specifically Lyudmila Pavlichenko. She is considered by many to be one of the most dangerous snipers who ever lived. Allegedly, she killed something like 310 people in battle. And as she would say, not men, Nazis. She is a fascinating historical character who is sadly just outside of the scope of this show. But I just thought it was a neat little trick that this movie does, is it takes the main character and bases it loosely on this historical character. And on top of that, the movie deals very specifically with something that I don't see talked about in really any World War II media, though it's a part of the war that is actually really quite neat. Specifically, a group of pro-Nazi partisans called the Werewolves, or the Werwolf. They were basically irregular militia and soldiers who harassed Allied forces, mostly the Soviet Army, kind of at the very end and after the war for a while. Really brutal, awful group of human beings fighting, frankly, a losing battle that they were absolutely on the wrong side of. Obviously, I don't know if we've said this before, the Fright Lab is not a pro-Nazi podcast. Let's just get that out of the way. But this particular subject doesn't ever get talked about in kind of World War II media. And that brings us to this very weird intersection, right? World War II is clearly one of the worst things in human history. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's top 10 worst events in human history for just any number of reasons, none of which we need to explain here, I don't think. But one of the things you end up getting is that World War II-based horror is actually hard to do because war-based horror is hard to do. We've talked a little bit about war as a subject within the show. I want to say it's like episode 2 or 3 of the show. I talk about a couple of films relating to World War I and how World War I is one of the, also top 10 worst things to happen in human history. I think horror media, even at its best, does a very poor job at showing, the horror of war, right? Because war, especially on the scale of the two world wars, was so extreme and so severe and so all-encompassing. I mean, truly, total war is so gruesome that I don't think conventional consumer grade horror can do it. The only film that I have seen personally that I think truly 100% covers the absolute terror of World War II on the Eastern Front is a Belarusian film called Come and See. Some members of my audience, I know as a fact, have seen it. As much as I think that film is amazing and important and beautiful in the way that filmmaking can be, even when it's talking about something awful, Come and See is an incredibly gruesome, dark film, and not one I recommend to anyone just willy-nilly. It is a hard watch, the very definition of the words, bummer of a watch. So I won't recommend that, oh, well, you should skip Burial and go see Come and See. Not at all. Burial is a much easier film to stomach in most regards. That having been said, as I was watching the movie, I kind of found myself feeling almost a little disappointed, maybe, because I thought to myself, like, well, this is a horror movie. I was expecting it to be more of a traditional horror film. And it doesn't do that. It doesn't give you what you want. And that's something really interesting. What it does, however, is take a lot of horror tropes that wouldn't be out of place in other horror movies. You know, vicious aggression, kind of brutal kills, betrayals. You get the point. It takes a lot of stuff that you would expect out of a horror movie and puts it in this almost straight-laced war film drama kind of action-y, not an action movie, but action-y kind of movie. It takes all these horror tropes and it displaces them from what you would expect and puts them into this movie. It is shockingly effective, actually. When the real bad stuff happens, it's typically pretty quick, but it's very awful and hard to watch. And that's not something I can say most movies pull off. So Burial, I will say, was kind of a surprise for me. I was expecting it to actually disappoint me about 2/3 of the way through, but by the end of it, it does some really neat stuff. And, you know, should you watch Burial this spooky season? I don't know that it is necessarily spooky. It is scary and it's hard to watch, but it's not really spooky. Now, I do think if you are looking for a real change of pace, if you've watched maybe one too many of the Halloween films, and Lord knows I think there are one too many of those films. There's actually about 7 too many of those films, but you know, we're not talking about Halloween in this episode. If you're looking for something that is maybe a little less fantastical and a little more, I don't know, maybe a little more realistic in the scary way, Burial is a good choice. It is an excellent film and it is worth your attention. So it's getting late and it's time for you to go watch something scary. So we're going to leave it there, but I'm going to ask friends, fans, siblings, have you seen Burial? Did you enjoy it? And is there some other like war horror joints I could be watching? If you know of some, you should let us know by reaching out to us at thefrightlabpodcast@gmail.com. We can be found on basically all social media. Just look up The Fright Lab. We are available on YouTube if you want to watch your podcast, a sentence that I still find very funny. Or you can find us on Discord. Again, we are not hard to find. So go grab yourself a nice cold drink and sit down and watch a good scary movie for us tonight. And in the meantime, just remember that The Fright Lab is written and researched by me, Lucas Yoakum, and it is produced and co-hosted by the one and only Mr. Joseph Friend. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll talk to you all again very, very soon. And hey, have a happy Halloween and a good October. We're just getting started. We've got so many more movies to talk about.